Leave is sought for that course of action. Is there any objection? Yes. There is objection. Question number 4, Dr. Russell Norman. Order. I won't tolerate that either. Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, will he recommit the provincial reconstruction team to Bamian province in Afghanistan when the current deployment ends in October? If so, why?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I've been clear that the withdrawal of the PRT from Bamian will take place in 2013, continuing to work on dates for that, although it's likely to be around April. If the member is asking whether the present rotation will be replaced with another when their rotation ends, then the answer is yes. However, I will not be commenting or confirming the specific timing of the rotation changes as a standard practice.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What work has the government been doing to develop an exit strategy for the provincial reconstruction team, given President Hamid Karzai called for the withdrawal of the PRTs throughout Afghanistan in early 2011?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, the government's been working with the CDF and the military on the withdrawal program. We, as you're aware, in terms of Bamian, are one of the first PRTs to transition out. By transitioning out in around about April of 2013, we'll be in line with other similar PRTs, and we're now working on making sure that the exit of our 145 plus personnel in Bamian province is done in the safest way possible for those particular men and women.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has the number of troops stationed in Bamian increased or decreased since 2010, when the then Defence Minister, Wayne Mapp, signalled that we would begin to draw down the provincial reconstruction team from September 2011?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I simply don't have those numbers to hand, but I'm happy to go and get those numbers and I can give them to the member.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Supplementary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the current provincial reconstruction team deployment, will they all be withdrawn in the rotation in October or whenever it happens?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, firstly, I think the member needs to make sure he gets his terminology correct. The deployment is the operation the commitment of our forces to Afghanistan. The rotation is the period of each of the groups that goes through. And if the question is, will all of them be replaced, that's only an answer that the CDF can give. That's a matter for him to decide who comes out and who stays in.
Supplementary.
Dr. Russell Norman.
So if we assume that the vast bulk of the current provincial reconstruction team can be withdrawn in October, or whatever the date is that the government plans to change to do the rotation, is it necessary to send in another deployment to replace them?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the advice I've had from the CDF is yes.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What defence equipment in Afghanistan is so vital or difficult to remove that it takes until 2013 to pack it up?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, well, there are a number of issues there. I mean, firstly, we have 3 bases in operation in Afghanistan. We have significant bases that need to remove equipment that's, for a variety of reasons, not possible or sensible for us to leave in Afghanistan. We also deal with the issues around weather. The member will be aware that the weather closes in when the snows come in November, and that takes a period of time. So overall, on the best advice we've had, the most probable and likely and sensible date is April 2013.
Dr. Russell Norman.
Is the Prime Minister saying that we're staying in Afghanistan past the October or thereabouts rotation because of the logistical reasons or because of the commitments we have made to ISAF?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it's because of a number of reasons. Firstly, we've been on a transition path that's part of an overall commitment made by all ISAF and NATO countries as they exit Afghanistan. And so our commitments are broadly partly for those reasons. Secondly, it's because of the logistical reasons. And thirdly, it's allowing us to finish some of the humanitarian aid efforts that we have been pointing out today that have been hugely successful. So it's a combination of all these things. I think if we take a step back, then what we can say is we've been in the PRT since 2003. We all in this House and across New Zealand mourn the loss of those 10 soldiers, and we pay tribute to their service. But I think we can also look with some great pride at the work that they've achieved in those last 8 years or 9 years, and I don't think we would honour either the loss of those individuals or mark properly the contribution that New Zealand has made by making a rushed exit for the door. I think we should do that in a sensible, orderly and professional way, as has been the basis of all of our efforts in Afghanistan since Helen Clark sent the SAS in 2001 and the provincial reconstruction team in 2003.
Supplementary.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Without dishonouring those who have fallen in Afghanistan, does the government understand that reducing the risk to the remaining New Zealand forces over there could help reduce the risk to any further loss of life, and hence will the government be pulling out of the northeast province, which seems to be northeast part of the province, which seems to be the most dangerous part of the deployment?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Firstly, let me give the member an assurance that the government works with the military to make sure that we provide the utmost safe and secure environment as we possibly can in Afghanistan, put in the context of this is a war zone. So the government makes sure that the resources are there, that the support is there, we are constantly reviewing what takes place there, and we do everything we can to provide security and safety. But unfortunately, we're dealing with a quite sophisticated insurgent group who have been very active in recent times. So in terms of that, the member can take some confidence that we are doing those things. In terms of the withdrawal from the PRT, that will be a staged process for a variety of different reasons. But at this point, I'm not in a position to detail exactly the timing of the different stages as we pack up various different camps and bases that we have.
Supplementary question, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Prime Minister accept the Labor Party's support for an orderly transition of the forces out of Afghanistan as promptly as possible?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I am more than happy to give the member a briefing on all the things that are taking place, the reasons for why we are going through this process, and why is the belief of the CDF and the military that the program that we're on to withdraw is the right one. I think, to be frank, we've worked in the spirit of cooperation for a very long period of time with the Labor Party. I think that on this issue, as I think National did in opposition, and we're more than happy to inform the member of the rationale of what's happening and why we're doing what we're doing. Some of that information is confidential and we can't put that in the public domain, but we take the member as a respected member at his word that he would obviously appreciate that information. If he and the opposition defence spokesman wants to have a briefing, then I'm happy to have that arranged by the CDF.
Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has his government changed the mandate of the provincial reconstruction team, given that when they were first deployed under the Helen Clark government in 2003, the then Defence Minister Mark Burton stated very clearly that they were not a, quote, combat unit?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I don't have the original mandate that the member speaks of to hand, so I can't comment about whether there are differences to those ones or the ones that my government have rolled over as each rotation has gone through. But what I can say is that the provincial reconstruction team does a variety of different tasks in Bamian, but for the most part those have been either engagement with and working with the local community, working on areas of development, but there's always been an element of providing security for our humanitarian aid efforts so that those workers can carry on the great works that we've seen. And as I noted today, I think we can be very proud of some of those efforts. We now have a situation where half of all primary school children that go to school in Bamian are girls, that there is a multi-faculty institution in Bamian University with 2,700 people there in operation, and the mortality rate for children under 5 has almost halved. So I think the men and women, of which there are a very large number that have now served in that PRT since 2003, deserve the congratulations of this country for the efforts and the work that they have done. And I hope that in the years to come it will bear fruit for the people of Bamian.
Question number 5, Jacinda Ardern.